Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Tinubu departs for New York to join other world leaders for the 78th United Nations General Assembly starting on Monday. President Bola Tinubu nominates Jamila Bio Ibrahim and Ayodele Olawande to lead the Ministry of Youth pending their confirmation by the Senate. Osun State government alleges the engines of the aircraft, which Governor Ademola Adeleke and some of his aides were meant to travel in about a week ago, were tampered with. And European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen visits Lampedusa, promises to help Italy deal with the migrant situation amid surging arrivals to the Italian island by boats. President Bola Tinubu has departed Nigeria for New York in the United States to attend the 78th United Nations General Assembly holding between September the 18th and 26th. The theme for this year's meeting is Rebuilding Trust and Reigniting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals towards peace, prosperity, progress and sustainability for all. This is the President's first UNGA or UNGA meeting since he was sworn in as President in the month of May. According to a statement by presidential spokesman Ajuri Ngalale, the President is expected to hold bilateral meetings with various world leaders, including US President Joe Biden and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on the sidelines of the summit. The President is also expected to meet with the global president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, as well as the head of global affairs for Meta Technologies, Nick Clegg. He is also expected to deliver his inaugural national statement on the floor of the UN headquarters on September the 19th. On Wednesday, September the 19th, the President will address American business leaders at the US Chamber of Commerce and conduct the NASDAQ closing ceremony. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has approved the nomination of Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim to serve as the Minister of Youth. The President also approved the nomination of Mr. Ayodele Olawande to serve as the Minister of State for Youth, and their nomination is pending their confirmation by the Senate. Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim is a medical doctor and most recently served as the President of the Progressive Young Women Forum, while Mr. Ayodele Olawande is a community development expert and youth leader in the APC who recently served in the office of the Special Advisor to the President on Innovation from 2019 to 2023. In a statement by the President's spokesperson, Mr. Ajuri Ngalale, President Bola Tinubu challenged the nominees to bring their best to bear in carrying out their responsibility as they serve the nation. If confirmed by the Senate, this will bring the total number of ministers in the cabinet to 47. The Osun State government is alleging sabotage in the aircraft incident involving Governor Ademola Adeleke over a week ago. Now, the spokesperson to the Osun State Governor, Olawale Rashid, says there are strong indications that the two aircraft engines were tampered with before boarding. According to him, contrary to the claim by the hangar owner that birds' nests caused the incident, birds' nests are made with straws and not bidding-wise as in this case. The spokesperson said the highly technically equipped aircraft was well maintained with the best technical crew and was never an unused platform, and there's no way birds could have built nests in the engines. The statement reads in part, "An early warning noise from the engines immediately prompted the pilots to direct the evacuation of the passengers. Everything happened within 5 minutes." Meanwhile, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, the NCAA, and the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau, NSIB, said a full-blown investigation into the incident has commenced. A statement signed by the Director General of the NCAA, Captain Musa Nuhu, said the Aviation Minister, Festus Keyamo, has assured that the outcome of the investigation and recommendations will be implemented in line with global best practices. To the Judiciary now, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, will on Wednesday, September the 20th, administer the oath of office on 9 newly appointed justices of the Court of Appeal. The new justices are to be inaugurated at the main court auditorium of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. The new appellate court justices are Hannatu Azomi Lajabalogun from Kaduna State, who was appointed a High Court judge on May 24th, 1999, Binta Fatima Zubero from Kaduna State, appointed a High Court judge on October 31st, 2001, and Peter Chudi Obiora from Anambra State, who was sworn in as High Court judge on January 17, 2005. Others are Justices Okon Efreti Abang from Akwa Ibom State, who was appointed a High Court judge on June 22, 2009, Asmao Musa Mainoma from the Federal Capital Territory, appointed High Court judge on February 1, 2013, Lateef Adebayo Ganiyu from Oyo State, who became High Court judge on June 26, 2014, and Jane Esenawan Inyang from Cross River State, who was sworn in as High Court judge on February 12, 2015. The rest are Hadiza Rabiu Shagari from Sokoto State, who was elevated to the High Court bench on February 12, 2015, and Paul Ahmed Bassi from Borno State, appointed to the High Court on July the 14th, 2017. Meanwhile, Justice Amina Adamu Ogi will formally retire from the Supreme Court's bench on Thursday, September the 21st this year, having attained the mandatory retirement age of 70 years on Sunday, September the 3rd, 2023. With Justice Ogi's retirement, the Supreme Court is now left with 11 justices, as against the constitutionally stipulated 22 justices. Meanwhile, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, is asking the federal government to prosecute the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and the entire management of the CBN for what he termed incitement and culpable homicide over the cash crunch experienced by Nigerians last year, a situation which led to mass anger, violence, and even claimed at least 5 lives, with many others injured. Mr. Falana also wants the CBN to rebuild the bank buildings that were destroyed by angry bank customers in the aftermath of the cash crunch occasioned by the Naira redesign policy, and also for the CBN to pay compensation to the families of those who were killed as a result of the incitement of members of the public. In a statement, Mr. Femi Falana says, following a request to the Apex Bank about the actual amount made available to each of the commercial banks, the bank, via a letter dated September the 13th, has belatedly confirmed that it issued redesign currency notes of 402 billion naira to the banks, despite mopping up 3.5 trillion naira from circulation. Now, the rights activist says having misled Nigerians to believe that sufficient cash was distributed to commercial banks to replace the sum of 3.5 trillion naira mopped up from customers, Mr. Emefiele and the entire management of the bank ought to face trial. Now, the Enugu State Governor, Mr. Peter Mbah, has signed the state electricity bill into law, describing it as a major step towards economic growth in the state. Now, according to him, creating a state-owned electricity market will help reposition the state for investment, business, tourism, and living. Speaking at the signing event, which took place at the Government House in Enugu, Governor Mbah said the quest by his administration to build the state's economy from $4.4 billion to $30 billion would not be feasible without power supply.
The Enugu electricity law is indeed a veritable platform for us to be able to launch the sort of economic growth we have proposed to the people of Enugu State. As you know, following the constitutional amendment and the Electricity Act of 2023, the electricity is now under the concurrent list, and that has created enormous opportunity for the states to be able to create their own electricity markets. Enugu State has spent no time in making sure we create our own electricity markets, and that is the import of this law. This will now enable us to play in all the value chain of the electricity industry. We're now able to play in the generation, transmission, and distribution of the electricity markets. We're also, through our regulatory commission, which this law has also given us power to create, we're going to be able to regulate the activities of these players, the generation, the transmission, and the distribution companies.
The governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, is advocating for unity among Christian faithful in the country to advance positivity and influence. The governor emphasized the importance of harmony at the 14th General Synod of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion held at St. Mark's Anglican Church in Enugu, where he identified ecumenism as the best option to operate as Christians. On this part, the primate of the Anglican Communion, Most Reverend Henry Ndukuba, in his comment on State of the Nation address, called for a better economy and asked President Bola Tinubu to be more proactive and fair in his administration.
The new administration of President Tinubu must be proactive in providing the so much desired good governance and welfare for Nigerians. Issues of security, economy, health, education, and a clear roadmap for industrialization, technological advancement, and the rule of law must be clearly set out. Nigerians are longing for the birth of a new Nigeria.
That new Nigeria that we must build, let it start with me, start with you, start with each of us. But Teresa says, if you can't change a million, start changing yourself. Because if each person changes himself, then we'll have a better society. Christianity is founded on two laws, law of God and law of God and law of neighbor. Isn't it? Yeah. Just observe that. You love God with everything, but more importantly, love your neighbor. And when you love your neighbor, everything else disappears. Ecumenism, ecumenism, ecumenism is love. The church of God, the body of Christ is one. And we must not just talk about it, we must live it out.
The governor of Katsina State, Mr. Diko Rada, says his administration is hiring 7,326 teachers for primary and secondary schools in the state, emphasizing his commitment to depoliticizing the education sector. Mr. Rada made this statement during an exclusive interview with Channels Television. He noted that in the past, employment was often given to individuals without considering merit, but says those days are now behind us.
I was able to understand that you cannot achieve anything meaningful in education if you don't have the teachers. You may have the buildings, you may have the everything, ACs, computers, but if you don't have the teacher, you don't have anything. So most of our focus in the reforms in education is on the teachers. We have approved the employment of 7,326 teachers in the state. Before we do that, I've commissioned a committee to conduct examination on those young men and women. They conducted examination, they interviewed them, and after all those processes, which the World Bank has even acknowledged, they were even represented, so we were able to screen and come up with this figure. Unlike before, you just employed, you allocate employment to government functionaries, to stakeholders, and every other stakeholders in the state that bring 10, bring 5, bring 20 to employ. But this time around, we say we will never joke with the education of the state, and we will not politicize education for whatever reason. We will do the right thing, genuinely, and you will have opportunity to everyone to get employment without coming from anybody.
For more on the interview with Governor Diko Rada, watch Newsnight by 9 p.m. on Monday, September 18th, only on Channels Television. In part two, after the break, Nigeria's inflation hits 25.80% as food prices rise. Channels Television's data analyst Babajide Ogunsoro will dig into those numbers in a bit. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, we're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Bola Tinubu departs for New York to join other world leaders for the 78th United Nations General Assembly starting on Monday. President Bola Tinubu nominates Jamila Bio Ibrahim and Ayodele Olawande to lead the Ministry of Youth pending their confirmation by the Senate. Osun State government alleges the engines of the aircraft which Governor Ademola Adeleke and some of his aides were meant to travel in about a week ago were tampered with. And European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen visits Lampedusa, promises to help Italy deal with the migrant situation amid surging arrivals to the Italian island by boats. Let's take you back to our lead story where President Bola Tinubu is expected to arrive in New York in the United States any moment from now to attend the 78th United Nations General Assembly that's holding between September the 18th and the 26th. Well, the theme for this year's meeting is Rebuilding Trust and Reigniting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. Our correspondent, Larry Latasi, who is in New York, now gives us an insight into some of the events the president will be attending.
President Bola Tinubu will be attending the United Nations General Assembly, which will be taking place in New York this week. He's expected to arrive in the country today, and he's billed to speak at the high-level session on financial institutions taking place on Tuesday. He will be one of those selected to address the assembly. The president is going to be pushing for fairer international financial reform, hoping to push and continue with the theme he pushed when he was in India recently for the G20 summit, and try to push that countries in developed economies should look for ways of supporting the developing countries in global south. The president will also be having several meetings. There are several meetings lined up with industrialists and company executives, some of them like ExxonMobil. He will be meeting with them. He's also going to be having several bilateral meetings with country presidents. For instance, he's scheduled to meet with President Biden from here in the U.S. He's also to meet with other presidents like the South African president, and several other presidents have been lined up. From the schedule we have, it looks like it will be a very, very busy time indeed. But we had an interview earlier on with the Minister of Finance, who spoke to us about some of the things the president will also be doing here. Let's take a listen.
Well, it's a very exciting time for Nigeria. President Tinubu, of course, is going to make his maiden address tomorrow. He arrives today, this evening, and then he has the maiden address on the 19th. And there are quite a number of high-level meetings that he's going to be attending. As you know, it's the United Nations General Debate and General Assembly, so we have all the topics that are relating to the globe, the planet as a whole. Climate change, the SDGs, of course, Sustainable Development Goals and the targets to be reached, certain humanitarian concerns, things to do with humanity and how to end conflict also on the planet. So these are the major events that he'll be participating in. Nigeria has had a very good, very impressive track record at the United Nations, contributing to very important decisions that are made at a global level, and also contributing to peacekeeping. Got a good track record, peace building also, and we're of course a leader in Africa, and we constitute 15% of Africans. So. Promising.
Well, that was the Minister of Foreign Affairs there talking to us about some of the things we should also expect here or will be happening here when the president arrives. From New York, Lanre Lasisi.
Of course, there, Larry Lasisi on ground in New York. Well, apart from Larry Lasisi, our State House correspondent, we'll also have our other crew members in New York, likes of Ann Waldo, our London correspondent, Juliana Olanka, and of course, our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, to give us the details from the 78th UN General Assembly kicking off tomorrow. Back home, residents of Lagos State have been recounting their experience from the flash floods that occupied major roads, streets and homes after Saturday's downpour. Now, besides damages done to household items across the state, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, had reported that a commercial motorcycle operator was washed away by the flood in the Alimosho area. Our crew monitored the situation today and noticed that calm has since returned to most of the places adversely affected by Saturday's flash floods.
Eyewitnesses' videos show floods sweeping through roads and streets, keeping residents alert to prevent water from entering their homes.
Please, Lagos State government, come to our aid. This is the second time in a few days now.
This is the impact of the result of rainfall that lasted about 14 hours on Saturday, September 16.
This is someone's parlor, somebody's sitting room.
Every part of Lagos reportedly witnessed the intense downpour, which halted movements and activities of any kind.
That's an official vehicle being pushed out of the road. That's a car sunk inside there. That's another flying boat they are using now to cross you, as you can see.
24 hours later, the streets have become dry, with almost no trace of the level of deluge witnessed the day before.
It was so high. It was so high. Like 3 hours, they went for over 3 hours or 4 hours. You can see how the rain fell. And everywhere was covered with flood.
It's calm in Orile-Agigi, one of the worst hit areas. While residents of Fashola and other streets in Papa Shafa tidy up their spaces, they're using what appears to be a short break from the rain to put themselves together and to reflect on the causes and effects of the flood.
My shop was formerly here before I moved to this place, before it was demolished, but it's really affecting us.
A primary wastewater channel and other road projects apparently not completed, and poor channelization of the drainage system appear to be the cause of recent flooding in the area.
It's under construction going to 10 years now. We've been abandoned, which we believe should be helped the situation of the community.
Most of the residents affected by the floods had taken refuge in churches and schools, but at the time of this recording, had all returned to their homes. Some even got non-food items as relief from the National Emergency Management Agency to fix damages caused by the flood.
Everywhere was filled up, and people were unable to even move to the other side of the streets. So the only thing we could afford was to open the gate for them to come inside the school, to stay there till the floods goes down.
This woman says she received 6 mattresses and beddings for her household.
They came in with many mattresses, bags of cement, children wears, and some other items to distribute to the affected people that were displaced by flood.
The Southwest coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency explains its assessment of the flood situation in Orile-Agigi and other areas visited.
By 5-6, most of the places have dried up. So where water were trapped in residential houses, they were all pumped out. We initially have to know the situation. When we got the situation that is one of the most deplorable issue, so we had to deploy non-food items like mattresses, blankets, antiseptics.
Even though the floods have receded across the Lagos metropolis, residents still fear what may befall them when the rains return, just as the clouds begin to gather for another round of downpour.
The National Bureau of Statistics recently released inflation figures for the month of August, which puts headline inflation at 25.8% compared to 24.08% recorded in July. Tonight, our focus is on how to reduce the cost of living through inflation rate targeting and management. Babajide Ogunsawo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is right here to share insights on Nigeria's latest consumer price inflation. Great to have you on the News at 10, Babajide.
Absolutely, the pleasure is all mine.
All right, so let's get straight into it. For the layman, what does the recent inflation statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics actually mean? Let's start with that.
Now, for the layman, there's good news. But for the government, actually, there's some bad news. So I'd like to start with the bad news. And there are two reasons why I say for the government, there's bad news. The first reason is our 25% annual inflation rate as released by the Bureau of Statistics. What it means is that we are at a very unusual period. The last time inflation was as high as 25% actually, it was 12.5 years ago. You heard me right. August 2005 was the last time, based on the Bureau of Statistics reports, that the inflation went as high as 25%. So this is not a record that the government wants to break. First reason why I say this is bad news. The second reason why I call this number a bad number for the government is because the maximum personal income tax rate that is payable by an employee in Nigeria is 24%. Inflation right now is 25%. In simple terms, if inflation were a government, inflation right now will be making more money than the state government. You heard me right. At 25% inflation rate, an inflation rate that is higher than the maximum personal income tax rate payable in Nigeria, it simply means inflation is taking more money out of citizens' pockets than Nigerians are even giving the government. Bad news again for the government. But why do I say that there's some good news for the common man? I'd like us to take a look at this report and show the reason why there's still some, especially looking at a similar period when inflation was as high as 25%. The monthly inflation rate right now, 3.2%. But we remember in January 2012, monthly inflation was even higher, 3.3%. And we saw how it gradually came down from that period. So in simple terms, the point is inflation is this high does not mean it will always keep getting this high. Going into our history books, we've been able to identify points in our history when inflation was high and it has come down. Even during the period, there was a time during the tenure of President Obasanjo, inflation was higher than 25%. And within a year, it was able to bring it down to single digits. So the good news for the common man is that prices of goods and services have been rising in recent times. Does not mean it will keep rising. So there's some hope that their income will still give them value in future.
All right, so Babajide, how soon are we likely to see single-digit inflation rates?
That's a big question, but if my memory serves me right, based on the Bureau of Statistics' own record, the last time we saw a single-digit inflation rate, if I'm correct, was in 2016. And so Nigeria has gone through a period of over 7 years that we haven't seen single-digit inflation. President Buhari served for 90 months, and 90% of the time, 96 months, if I'm correct, 96 months, and 90% of the time, inflation was in double digit. But there's some surprising news. And if we take a look at the last 3 months of President Buhari and we compare that with the first 3 months of President Tinubu, we'll see some reasons about and some insights why the common man seems to be worried. President Buhari's last 3 months, again, data from the Bureau of Statistics shows that his last 3 months, inflation was high but stable. So 22% in those last 3 months, 22.2%, 22.54%. So we saw That 22 number stick with Nigerians in his last 3 months, even though we saw those 0.2 increments, 22%, 22.2, 22.4. But what has happened in the first 3 months of President Tinubu, we've seen significant increase in the rate of price of goods and services. So from 22.8% in June to 24.1% in July, and this latest numbers, 25.8%. So in simple terms, prices have been significantly more volatile in President Tinubu's first 3 months relative to President Buhari's last 3 months. And these are data and statistics from the Bureau of Statistics that we're crunching here.
So as we round up now about Bauchi, how effective has monetary policy actually been with reference to managing inflation?
That's the elephant in the room. What we know is that there's a lot of correlation between the MPR rate, the monetary policy rate, and the inflation rate. So close that we are no longer sure if it's because of the rising inflation rate that monetary policy rate is increasing, or it's because the monetary policy rate is increasing, that is why inflation is increasing. To make this simple, I'd like us to take a look at the monetary policy rate since it was introduced. The monetary policy rate was introduced in December 2006. And then remember in January 2007, monetary policy rate was 10%. Inflation then, a lot of citizens felt it was bad. And that was 7.9%. But actually, if you look carefully at the table in front of you, here's what you notice. Between January 2007 and May 2003, monetary policy rate has gone up. It has almost doubled. And despite monetary policy rate almost doubling, inflation rate has almost tripled. In other words, inflation rate is going significantly faster than monetary policy rate. In simple terms, Nigerians are getting poorer, which is what it means, and the value of money that you keep in the bank is of less value. And so I remember what my grandfather used to tell me to save, because several years ago, the amount of money you have in your savings account reflected how wealthy you are. These days, the amount of money you have in your savings accounts reflects how unwise you are. And that's because based on inflation rate, every naira saved is a naira wasted. So my final take will be save less, invest more. And that will bring a little more respite to Nigerians as the government keeps looking for programs, policies, and with the new central bank governor Yemi Cardozo coming in, it will be interesting to look at what programs it will bring to be able to encourage Nigerians to save more and get more value for their money. But as at the moment, a naira saved is a naira wasted. So save less, invest more.
Save less, invest more. Some food for thought there. Well, many thanks, Babajide Oguso, Channels Television's data analyst, for your thoughts on the news at 10.
The pleasure is all mine today.
The federal government is working at averting another industrial action by the Nigerian Labour Congress, the NLC. The Minister of Labour and Employment, Mr. Simon Lalong, has invited labour union leaders, which he said is important to avert further disruption to the nation's economy. Mr. Lalong directed the Department of Trade Union Services and Industrial Relations to convene the meeting for Monday, September the 18th this year. He assures everyone that the administration of President Bola Tinubu will engage the organized labour and guarantee industrial harmony after due consultation and negotiations. The Imo State government has flagged off a statewide vaccination program against anthrax disease in order to checkmate the transmission of the disease in Imo State. Speaking during the flag-off of the vaccination program in Owerri, the state capital, the Commissioner for Livestock Development in Imo State, Anthony Mbiarakure, enjoins all farmers, herders, and animal owners in the state to take full advantage of this opportunity to get their animals vaccinated against the disease, anthrax.
Since the outbreak of anthrax disease in Nigeria in July, most state governments have stepped up efforts in ensuring that the transmission of the disease is checked. In Imo State, the Ministry of Livestock Development is not leaving anything to chance as they begin sensitization of Imo indigenes on anthrax disease with a road show and rally. Workers in the ministry and veterinary doctors walked the streets of Owerri with banners, placards, while sharing flyers to the public. At the flag-off of the vaccination program against anthrax, the Commissioner for Livestock Development explains that a lot of preventive measures has already been taken by the state government to checkmate transmission of this deadly disease in the state.
Today marks the beginning of a very rigorous vaccination exercise that will span weeks. I enjoin all farmers, herders, and animal owners in the state to please avail their animals for this program. Intensified our meat inspection in the abattoirs across the state. All our staff who work in the abattoirs have been educated to take their meat inspection seriously, to make sure that no contaminated meat is passed for consumption by the Imo people.
The Commissioner, on behalf of the Governor Hope Uzodinma, then flags off the vaccination program. Anthrax is a serious infectious disease caused by gram-positive rod-shaped bacteria known as Bacillus anthracis. It occurs naturally in animals such as cattle, sheep, goats, camel, donkeys, pigs, and wildlife animals. Experts say humans can get sick with anthrax if they come in contact with infected animals or contaminated animal products.
Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State has praised President Bola Tinubu for demonstrating true leadership in the face of biting economic hardship. He commended the president during the flag-off exercise of the distribution of federal government's palliatives. Governor Mohammed promised to continue to ease the sufferings of the people through various interventions. Our correspondent, Hajara Aliyu, tells us more.
The Bauchi state government is officially launching the distribution of the federal government's 5 billion naira palliatives to states. Governor Bala Mohammed kicks off the process as he presents 10,000 naira cash each and bags of rice to some of these beneficiaries. The template gives special consideration to persons with disabilities and the vulnerable groups. The distribution formula cuts across different segments, and it includes the distribution of about 90,000 bags of rice across polling units. 300 million naira is being set aside for cash transfers. 800 million naira will be disbursed for the payment of outstanding gratuities of state and local government retirees, and over 600 million naira is for the payment of leave grants. Sectors like health, agriculture and transport will also receive intervention under the palliative program.
I want to register my sincere gratitude to President Tinubu for his timely response to the yearnings of the people who deserve respite from the shock of the fuel subsidy removal. By this prompt response, the President demonstrated that he is a listening leader and that the removal of the subsidy on fuel was not intended to punish anybody, and that he is not ready to play politics with the life of the people. The removal was just an exercise of leadership and responsibility.
The Emir of Bauchi is saddled with the responsibility of heading the distribution exercise.
I hereby assure His Excellency of our total commitment to work diligently to judiciously distribute the items to all the deserving citizens to the state. We will not fail you, inshallah. The governor cautioned members of the implementation team against sabotaging the process. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
To environment issues now, experts are seeking ways to mitigate the challenges of climate change because of its impact on food production in West Africa. The experts came up with suggestions during the 4th International Conference on Dry Lands in Kano. Our correspondent, Nanchin Vincent, reports.
The Center for Dryland Agriculture in Bayero University, Kano, is hosting this international food conference to consider the best practices to tackle emerging challenges of climate change as it affects food security in West Africa.
The dark red is more than 10% shorter. So if you have a 100-day variety today, it's going to be a 90-day variety in a few years.
The theme of the conference is ecosystem restoration and natural resource management, exploring opportunities for food security in the drylands. And the center shares some ideas on how to resolve the challenge.
The ecological integrity has been compromised, and then the consequences of that are some of these problems that I mentioned. So definitely we need to act fast and even faster to address some of these challenges.
When you talk of drylands, these are areas that have challenges of water. The rainy season is usually very short, and sometimes it comes within a small, short period. Very often there is a lot of very high temperature heat, so evapotranspiration is very high. So in this kind of conferences, we discuss what researchers are doing, how they can reverse these trends, what are the scientific ways we can use, knowledge-based evidence we can use.
The conference is a collaboration between the Center and the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, and the International Center for Maize and Wheat Improvement, a collaboration that is considered key to addressing food security in the ECOWAS region.
We have centers within the animal industry, and these ones are here to profile some of their innovations and technologies that can lead to improved yields for animal production. And similarly for the crops, there's also research that has been undertaken on various varieties that are adaptable to drylands.
We realize that there has been a huge gap, a communication gap between the government and the expert, particularly the academicians. So we're working with the CDA to make sure that whatever research are there available, we are using it in order to implement whatever will be good for our people.
The conference is aligning with the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration and the SDG 13, which talks about life on land, and the outcome here is considered critical to developing a clear roadmap in addressing the impact of climate change in West Africa. From Kano Commercial City, Nanchin Vincent, Channels Television News.
New attempts by members of a transnational drug trafficking organization to export various quantities of methamphetamine and skunk through the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Ikeja and courier companies in Lagos have been foiled by operatives of the NDLEA, who intercepted the consignments concealed in various items. In Imo State, officials of the NDLEA intercepted 5 pregnant teenage girls suspected as child traffickers used as baby factories while they were being relocated from their hideout in Naze area of Owerri to Enugu area of the state capital. Meanwhile, 2 suspects were arrested with 227.1 kilograms of cannabis at Ikebe village in Ankwa local government area of Kogi State, while a female suspect was arrested with 108 kilograms of same substance in the Ifo area of Ogun State. Operatives also seized 100 blocks of cannabis weighing 55 kilograms and 600 bottles of codeine-based syrup from 2 suspects in Kano. Also at the Federal Capital Territory, a 27-year-old suspect was arrested with 6,000 bottles of codeine-based syrup along Lokoguma-Abuja Road. And now to the arts. Visual integration is the theme for contemporary artist Tunde Alelo's solo exhibition in Lagos. This exhibition showcases works of art, especially drawings, which the artist has done over a period of time to mark his return to the art scene. We see it on Art Review tonight.
For those wondering where he has been all this time, Olatunde Aleilo replies them with this retrospective solo art exhibition of drawings, paintings, and prints called Visual Integration in Lagos.
Before now, I've been involved in quite a lot of things. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been into logistics business. I've done building construction. I currently run a printing outfit. And for so long, I've not been active in the visual art space. And for a couple of years, I've actually been working. So I had come out with this show to make a statement that can actually integrate my visual arts into everything that I've been doing. That's why it's called visual integration.
The experience garnered over the years is revealed in works like Northern Lady, Laughing Soul, Nature's Call, Three Jolly Friends, Bridal Dance, In Deep Thought, and many others.
Art is something that I love. Art is something that I breathe. Everything that I do involves art, my dressing and everything. So it's a passion that I've had since my secondary school days. The peculiarities of Africa is our culture. So our art is a part of our culture. For instance, everything that I do revolves around the things that I see around me. So everything that I do is art that is deeply enshrined in the African culture, in the African setting, in the African domestic scenes.
Growth and ability to improve is what some of those who have followed the artist closely see when they look at these images on display.
Sincerely speaking, I am overwhelmed with these are the expression of his thoughts. And that is what we can see. I want to believe that he's making progress and he will continue to make progress even as he marks this milestone of his life.
This solo exhibition, which comes after a book reveal, captures real-life intrigues, part of a series of activities lined up to celebrate a milestone in the life of this artist.
The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has visited the migrant reception center on the Italian island of Lampedusa after the country's Prime Minister called for EU's help with the arrival of small boats. More than 8,000 migrants have arrived on the island over the past 3 days. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni says Italy is being placed under unsustainable pressure. Ms. von der Leyen acknowledged on Sunday that the issue was a European challenge and needs a European answer. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has left the railway station in Russia's far eastern city of Artyom on board a train bound for home. Video posted on Telegram by the Russian Natural Resources Minister Alexander Kozlov showed Kozlov, Moscow's ambassador to North Korea, Alexander Matsugora, and governor of Russia's far eastern Primorsky region, Oleg Kozhenyamko, seen off the North Korean leader at the end of his week-long visit. Footage showed the North Korean leader walking along the red carpet to his train carriage in the Russian far eastern city of Artyom and waving goodbye to the sounds of a military band. Now, the UN envoy to Libya, Abdoulaye Batali, has visited the city of Derna, worst hit by recent devastating floods, where he checked up on field operations there and met with the head of the Eastern-based administration. Nearly 11,500 people are said in Libya as a result of the floods, while 10,000 others are missing from Derna. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu is due to arrive New York in the United States, joining other world leaders for the 78th United Nations General Assembly. The president is expected to participate in high-level dialogue on financing for development and will deliver his inaugural national statement on Tuesday. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Do have a good night.